With housekeeping. So, first and foremost, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today on how to put a bow on your holiday sales strategy with Amazon Video. Um, as you guys can see in the bottom corner, you are more than welcome to drop in messages, say hello, but we also have a Q&A box, which we would love if you are putting your questions in real time. We'll have a bit of time at the end here to get to all of them. So feel free to drop them in as we go along. We'll hold, and then we'll be sure to answer them as they come in. Now, also, you have the option to send them in anonymously, or you can always just say, hey, I'd like to connect with someone at Pure Cars or Amazon afterwards. That being said, you guys are all muted with no camera on except for our two hosts. And I think without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to them. What do you guys say?
Thanks, Hannah. And thanks to all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us. We're super excited to have Tim from Amazon with us today. Pure Cars has been working with him and his team for coming up on 3 years now. And in those 3 years, the Amazon platform has really become an integral part of the advertising strategies for a large number of our dealers. They're truly a leader in the space when it comes to programmatic advertising solutions like online display, video, and streaming TV. And one of the biggest reasons they are where they are today is because of the audience access, the consumer data, and the targeting capabilities that live within their platform. When we think of ways to generate more demand for our dealers in order for them to sell more cars, Amazon is always at the forefront of our minds. And with that being said, Tim, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, Jeff and Hannah, thank you for the opportunity to come here and chat a little bit today. And thanks to everyone for participating and joining this. Well, I guess it's still morning in most places, at least where I'm at in Kansas City. So with that, we'll go through a little bit around Amazon's viewership today. How do we think about data? And then finally, we'll close out with a couple case studies and some Q&A. But before we get there, I really want to talk about the television landscape as it sits today. So what's interesting, if you kind of sit back and look at where the consumers are going to really consume content, there's really been a shift over the last, let's call it, 6 to 7 years. And as we look forward, that shift is happening at a rapid pace. So what you're looking at here is really the convergence of consumer households in the US that pay for a typical linear TV bundle or watch linear TV. And what you're seeing is that trend is declining, while households that don't pay for traditional linear TV services continue to climb. And those households are really at a transition point where they're really streaming more so now than they ever have been before. And we're at a spot in time in 2024 where there are more households in the US that are streaming than households that pay for traditional linear TV. And when I think about that, I kind of brought back to the days of when we all had Blackberries. Jeff, you and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, that was probably one of my favorite phones. When you were sitting there and you were first able to, smash out a BBM real quick or an email. I think the largest downside was the lint ball that got stuck in the trackball, and that was always a battle. But it was such like a revolutionary device at the time. And then you fast forward a couple years later, and the iPhone launches, and really at that time there was a moment where we as marketers, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call, were thinking, like consumers' time and attention have really shifted to this mobile first universe. How should I be augmenting my advertising strategy so that I can match the consumer's time and attention and really bring my dealership in front of people that are actively, scrolling through their phone and get my brand and message in front of them. And I think what we're seeing in real time is that the same thing is happening when you think about the world of the television market. So we just went through a little bit of a remodel and actually still remodeling the office. So I'm perched up in the dining room right now. But we bought a couple new TVs. So if anybody has bought a new TV in the last, let's say, even 2 or 3 years, what you're noticing is that the UI and the ability to navigate the screen to discover new content and new publishers is really more intuitive than it ever has been. So I like to think about that in the same way that we think about the iPhone. The device is really driving consumers into a place where they haven't been before and consuming content in ways that they may not traditionally have consumed content. And it's happening at such a rapid clip that we as advertisers are candidly still playing a little bit of catch up when it comes to the shift in consumer time and attention. The other thing that's happening in the television landscape is that publishers, Amazon included, among others, let's talk about like Peacock and CNBC and everybody else, they are putting premium content and their most sought after content in a streaming first environment. And that is causing the viewership to shift to those media channels. So really enabling consumers to find content in a streaming first world, which again give us the opportunity to think through how do we reach those consumers. So and we're seeing this in real time, and this has been one of the catalysts for Amazon Prime Video to really allow consumers and advertisers to meet in the middle. In early 2024, this was back in the beginning, the end of January, early February, Amazon announced that Prime Video would now allow advertising for the first time in our history. This has been a big ask from a lot of advertisers over the course of the years, and we finally have kind of come to the table and said, yes, let's open up the walls. You see that in a number of different ways. So, and what we see is that consumers love Prime Video. We're bringing a ton of original content to the market. A bunch of these are my favorites. Two in particular that I love. If you haven't seen Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal, thought that was an awesome remake, kind of a throwback to Patrick Swayze and the original. Really well done, super classy, just like a fun movie to watch. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm sure you've seen the original movie with Angelina Jolie and no, I'm sorry, it was Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. This is a little bit of a spin-off, little bit of comedy, lots of action. If you haven't seen that, super entertaining show. And then finally Thursday Night Football, which we is our probably our most watched weekly show, sitting at about 15 million viewers every night. We got another big game tonight with the Texans and Jets, so we'll see who comes out on top. I get my money on the Texans. So a lot of great original programming coming to Prime Video along the way, and just a consistent, really big provider of content. If you haven't checked out Reacher, you got over 1.7 billion minutes of Reacher that's been streamed. Again, another like really hot original program that we're bringing to market. And then Fallout, another hit that's just got a massive viewership. And so I show you all of this just to kind for you to think about, where consumers' time and attention is is really shifting in the amount of consumers that are really viewing streaming content on a daily basis. So when you think about Prime Video, really it's the #1 streaming TV service in the United States that's ad supported. So when you think about that in a different way, we're really the #1 TV station in the US. So I'm sure many of you have bought traditional TV in the past, and you're always thinking about reach and frequency, and how can I get my dealership or my brand in front of the most consumers at the most opportune time. And candidly, like, I think that reach and frequency is the basis for all advertising. Just give me enough opportunities so that I can ultimately swing the bat and put the ball in play, and will ultimately sell a vehicle. So you can not only think about streaming across Prime Video when you think about Amazon, but you can also think about it across publishers that you know and love. So you can think about CBS or the NFL channel or Paramount or TLC or any of the sports and channels that you might know and love from your traditional cable viewing experience. And all of this content is in a non-skippable format. So when you can run 15 seconds or you can run 30-second commercials. And since it's a non-skippable format, it's a forced view to the consumer. So when you think about things like YouTube and being able to buy on a cost per completed view that are pennies on the dollar, this is very much in the same vein, but only on the largest screen in the house. And when you break this down by demographics, you can see that it's across every demographic is really engaged and viewing content across streaming and especially Prime Video. So what we're seeing is about the average consumer is consuming about 2 hours of content a day across Prime Video. And again, happening most of it on the largest screen in the house, with about 86% on TV and 10% on mobile, with just a small percentage on your desktop. And I think one of the most important things to think about is ad load. You know, we just came out of what was a record-breaking political season, and ad load is really important when you think about, you know, breaking through the clutter as an automotive advertiser. You know, gone are the days where you're the 5th commercial in a 12 commercial pod and you're sandwiched in between 3 other car dealers or 2 other brand commercials. You know, with streaming, you really have the opportunity to cut through the clutter because there's only 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes of commercial time per hour. And those ad loads are so short that it allows you to really connect with the consumer in a more direct fashion. So you don't have to be as loud and boisterous in your creative, and you can convey a more simplistic message and really bring, you know, your dealership's values to the table and allow the consumer to really understand, hey, this is who I am, and this is the inventory that I offer, and maybe have a sales event or, you know, an offer in there that stands out rather than, you know, 4 or 5 offers being screamed at the viewer in a 5-minute break. And so I want to talk a little bit about automotive in general. What we see is that there's a really high percentage of engaged automotive shoppers on Prime Video every week, and even a pretty high percentage of viewership that's engaged on a daily basis. And when we think about automotive shoppers, what we see is that there's about 2.7 dealership visits for luxury shoppers and about 2.5 dealership visits for non-luxury shoppers. And if we think about test drives, there's about 2.4 test drives on average for an Amazon shopper and about 2.1 test drives for a non-luxury shopper. So what we understand is that, if you're a dealer and we can bring consumers into the dealership and then they will ultimately test drive a vehicle, the opportunity to sell that customer a vehicle jumps up dramatically as we get them behind the wheel. So if we can use a medium that allows us to do that, gives us a much higher opportunity to ultimately move metal off the lot. Another driver that we see as a catalyst is that from our research, about 63% of all vehicle sales were accelerated by a life stage event. When we came out with the study, it hit home, and told Jeff and the team the story a lot. But my wife and I, we were married for about 5 years, and we had our first kiddo. At the time, we were a 2 sedan household, and she came home from her baby shower and had just a bunch of stuff, probably a ton of things that we never even used. But I looked at her sedan and thought, well, that's not going to work anymore. So about 3 weeks later, we ended up purchasing our first SUV. And then you fast forward another couple of years, and we have our second child. The first one was a girl, the second one's a boy. So a whole bunch of other stuff comes into the picture, and then we end up with our second SUV. So if you think about things like wedding registries or baby registries or retirement or graduating from high school or graduating from college, these are all big life stage events. Even things like getting a new job, buying a home, all of these big life stage events give us an opportunity to start to bring our message forward and get our message and our dealership in front of consumers as they're moving through these events, and then tying them to in-market signals and understanding that these consumers will or have the potential to ultimately move into a vehicle shopping phase or purchase phase in their life. So, and about 96% of millennial moms have made a purchase on Amazon within the last 3 months. I'll say the story that I just shared about us buying a car is my wife falls into this bucket, and she definitely was the decision maker on when and which cars we were going to purchase. And I can say that 'cause she's not here unless she's hiding upstairs somewhere. But so millennial moms have a giant impact on the household decisioning process in a home and in the car buying process. So if we can create a strategy around reaching those women, ultimately bringing them in the dealership, we have a much higher opportunity to ultimately sell a car off the lot. So, and when I think about vehicle sales, what's important as I talk to dealers is really owning your PMA. So when you think about targeting on Amazon and specifically location targeting, we use the primary shipping address as the determination of where somebody lives. There's you don't get your Amazon packages shipped to an address that you don't live at. So when you can create a strategy where you're reaching consumers in their PMA based upon the household address that they live in, we know that we can create a strategy around either owning my PMA, conquesting somebody else's PMA, or developing a really unique strategy to drive consumers maybe from a different area of the town to our dealership. And so when you create a targeting strategy with Amazon, I really like to think about it in 2 different ways. The first way is we think about it really is from the ownership standpoint. So Amazon has a really large online parts business. So we are the top seller of parts in the United States. And when you go to Amazon to buy say, windshield wipers or floor mats or anything for your vehicle, we ask for the year, make, and model of that particular vehicle. And the reason we do that is for fitment. We want to be able to surface parts that ultimately fit your vehicle so that you're not buying windshield wipers for a Honda Civic if you've got a GMC Sierra. That just creates a headache on your side and creates a logistical nightmare where you have to return the part. We have to send you a new one. So in doing that, we've actually created an audience of around 190 million vehicles that are then associated back to 92 million active Amazon accounts in the US. And that gives us the second largest vehicle registration database just behind the DMV. We start to take all of that data and combine that with shopping signals and browsing signals that we can gather and build really robust in-market predictive audiences that then we can use to layer in across display, online video, streaming audio, and streaming TV to ultimately drive consumers through the purchase funnel. And you can create campaign structure around reaching consumers that are just plainly in market, or maybe we have a conquest strategy. We're starting to see some incentives roll in where maybe there's cash on the hood for a particular make and model, or we've seen a ton of trade-in, trade-out campaigns over the course of the last couple of years as dealerships are looking to acquire used inventory. And then when you think about lease expiration, there's a number of ways that you can think about that. We can bring in your own DMS data and use that as an audience. You can also create lookalikes off of your DMS data, and or we do have a pixel that we can drop on your site, and you can create lookalikes off of your site traffic and then target those consumers across any of these strategies. And then finally, we've seen a ton of fixed ops campaigns given our garage ownership data and our ability to understand transactions across various different third-party data providers. And so with that, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you to walk through some of the case studies that the PureCars team has come up with and developed.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so recently we partnered with a Volkswagen dealership in the Denver area. And along with our other digital advertising tactics that we were able to implement for them over roughly a 60-day time frame, we were able to see a considerable increase in overall traffic to the website, 92% increase in unique users, 84% increase in sessions, and all of the other statistics that you can see there on the screen. Ultimately, what that did for that particular dealer from a sales perspective, and it's not actually in the case study, but I worked personally with this particular dealer, was over the following 6 months, an additional 20 to 30% increase in sales over that time frame. So that initial traffic to the website that they were able to drive and the additional brand recognition resonated for a considerable period of time when it comes to the effectiveness of this type of advertising, along with all of the other things that we were doing for this particular dealer. And this one is, we were working with a regional business center for one of the major OEMs in the market. They were traditionally focused on TV advertising, and they wanted to test Amazon's OTT space to increase brand awareness. From a cost per view standpoint, very inexpensive, just a 3-cent cost per view. Benchmark within the industry is around 4 cents, so roughly 20 to 25% less than what the industry benchmark is. From a view rate, we're averaging about 98% view rate. So this is, again, non-skippable video. People are watching the video from beginning to end, or watching the commercial from beginning to end, and that's happening at a 98% clip. And from a cost per thousand basis, and I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with CPM, and that's how streaming TV is bought and sold. Average CPMs across multiple platforms tend to be around the $40 benchmark. We're seeing CPMs typically in the low 30s using the Amazon platform along with their partners.
So with that, just to kind of like give you a little bit of a wrap and a guide, I think it's really important to keep it simple, right? When you break down advertising at its most fundamental and its core, it's all about reach and frequency. So getting our dealership in front of as many people as we can, as often as we can, and using the platforms with the largest reach to really accomplish that goal. And then let's build out a strategy that allows us to reach in-market consumers across our PMA. And then let's have some measurement that matters, right? Let's gain some efficiencies, because we know the cost per completed view is pennies on the dollar. And then when we measure, let's measure things that ultimately move the needle. So you can take all of that and then bring it back and formulate your strategy, with the 53rd week of the year being the largest selling week of the year. So that's us in a nutshell. I can open up to Hannah and team for questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, as mentioned before, we do have a Q&A chat box. Please go ahead and drop some in. I see a few have already come in, so we'll start there. But again, don't hesitate. This is your chance to ask. So number one, what unique advantages does Amazon Video offer for connecting with holiday shoppers that other ad platforms might miss? Tim, that sounds like maybe something you want to jump into, or Jeff, I'd also love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I can start us off, and then Jeff, feel free to chime in. Q4 is our Super Bowl. It's definitely Amazon's busiest time of the year. This year will be no different. The volume of shopping and insights that we see across every major category continues to increase year over year. And that allows us to really hone in our strategy when it comes to creating audiences. And then you'll also start to see in Q4 that some of the biggest content and largest launches of our on Prime Video will come out in market. So when you start to think about driving consumers really to Prime Video, and then coupling that with our ability to create really robust in-market automotive audiences, now would be the time where I would really, if you're thinking about putting your foot in the water, like Q4 is it.
And I would add to that. One of the things that I have conversations with dealers all the time about is their concern about fragmentation. Well, which platform should I go on? There's, Prime Video, there's YouTube TV, there's Hulu, there's Peacock, and it just keeps, these platforms keep popping up and getting added and added and added. And it's how do we actually reach enough people with enough frequency to have an impact? And really, I think Prime Video and Amazon really offers that, because again, they are the de facto #1 television station in the United States now. So with Prime Video, if you want to reach the largest on a single platform, that's going to be it. But when you also talk about the publishers that they're partnering with, ultra premium content, largest TV, largest screen in the room, non-skippable, but being able to reach those audiences at scale down to really a zip code level with their targeting capabilities is quite frankly unmatched.
Great. Looks like we had a couple more questions come in if you guys are up for it.
Sure. Fire away.
Sounds good. But with more people streaming more now than ever, how can car dealerships tailor their holiday messaging to really resonate with this audience who's watching?
From my perspective, make it more than just about price and payment. Where does your dealership plant their flag in the market and say, I'm going to give you the best experience, or I've got the biggest selection, or, whatever that, if you're marketing directors and you go talk to your GM, if you're going to give me Mr. GM, give me a 60-second pitch on, other than price and payment, why a consumer should buy from our dealership. That's what you need to put in that messaging, because at the end of the day, especially on the new car side of the house, which is really what we're talking about here, everybody's going to have a similar price and payment. Why? And if I've got 4 Toyota dealerships within a 20-mile radius of my house, why do I choose one over the other? Is it my experience at the sale? Is it how quickly, do you guarantee I can be in and out of your dealership in 2 hours? Things like that you can put into your messaging that's really going to make you stand apart.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, like, at the end of the day, this is TV, right? It's still TV, and we know what has worked and resonated in the past in TV. So just when you're developing your strategy, it's still TV. So
Yes.
Thanks for the point. Okay, great. Next question. If you had to highlight one tactic for dealerships to get the most out of Amazon Video this holiday season, what would it be?
I'd say stick to the basics, and make sure that you're creating campaign strategy around reach and frequency, and then understanding how your inventory and your audience strategy line up. I think that's pretty critically important. What we see, one of the biggest mistakes I think I see is that you'll create a strategy around reaching consumers who are in market for a sedan, but you've got 4 sedans on your lot, and the commercial is featuring a couple sedans. Like, that's not going to really drive the outcomes that you're looking for. So let's match up the opportunity with the inventory.
Another question's come in, unless you had anything else to add, Jeff. Okay, great. How does Amazon Video allow dealerships to be more precise in their targeting, reaching the right viewers at the right moments?
So I'll start with just saying the audiences that are unique to the Amazon ecosphere, you cannot find anywhere else. We can all go out and buy Polk data or, IHS data. Any agency can do that. Any, advertising company can do that. But Amazon has exclusive access to audiences. If you think about, one of the big buzzwords in the industry today is CDP, or consumer data platforms, and how can we reach those specific people, and how's that data? Amazon is probably the world's largest CDP. People voluntarily give up all of their information, their credit card, their purchase history, which basically tells us where they're at financially in life, their life cycle data based on what they're buying. There's no other platform in the world that can offer those types of insights into the consumer, and then allow us as retailers of cars or as advertising agencies to target those same consumers with our messaging.
Glad we recorded that. I feel like that's a perfect testimonial for Amazon. Okay, looks like we have potentially one final question, but again, if anybody's been holding on to one, feel free to drop it in the chat. But potentially, finally, what trends in consumer viewing behaviors should dealerships keep in mind as they're building their holiday campaigns on Amazon streaming?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that first slide. The reality is that consumers' time and attention are shifting faster than the advertising dollars are moving. So you've got an opportunity here, and it's probably a pretty short window, candidly, over the next 6 to 12 months, where if you can be a first mover, or grab that consumer's time and attention quicker than the competing dealer down the street, then you've got an opportunity to start to gain market share.
The other thing that I would add to that in terms of trend, I don't know if this is a trend or not, but this is something that is more of a constant, to be quite honest. But I see a lot of dealers make the mistake of, well, I only want to buy YouTube TV, or I only want to buy Peacock, and they're only buying one of the very many platforms out there. Consumers today are absolutely not platform loyal. They don't care what platform their programming is on. They just want to be able to watch what they want to watch. And if you think about your own behaviors in your own households, how many different platforms are you watching TV on, right? Probably at least 4 or 5. The beautiful thing about Amazon and Prime Video is that you get the best of both worlds. You get the #1 TV station in the United States in Prime Video, but with all of the partner publishers that are also ultra premium content, things like Fox Sports, Max Video, all of the logos that you saw on one of those slides that Tim showed you. You can take the #1 TV station and all the other TV stations that the majority of the people are watching and be able to merge that into one buy. Whereas if you go out and you try and buy multiple platforms separately, or you're only buying one platform, you're really not reaching the audience at scale and with frequency, and being able to manage it in one place is just so much more efficient.
Well said.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Jeff. I don't believe any additional questions have come in. But with that being said, I think this will conclude the webinar. If you guys have questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to connect one-on-one. Also, that being said, this has been recorded. We'll be sure to get this out to you, as well as we'll be sending you a copy of the deck so you can review it at your leisure as well. Again, thank you for everyone who's joined us today. We hope you got something out of it, and happy holiday season.
Yep. See you guys. Thanks for